All right, so Michael, we have the latest. I think you're the latest OC. I was trying to go through my mind. I'm like, who got promoted first? You or Justin? It was
Just,
Justin. Yeah,
yeah,
so you're the newest technically then.
technically. Yeah,
You're
until I saw, Fareed's getting promoted. So, officially on stage, I suppose, the most recent.
uh-huh. Yeah. Fareed hit the standard, so he'll be promoted. There was a bet going on with that one as well too. So Fareed gets a little extra something based on a little contest that we had within the org. But technically, right now, you are the youngest consultant we have in the business. So let's just start off for those that don't know you. Give us your background. I mean, your reputation as you're this salt of the earth, farm boy who's done very well in our business, right? So that's your reputation. So why don't you set the record straight? How salty are you exactly? And just give us your background.
Yeah, I didn't know that I had that reputation, but I'll take it for sure. I'm very proud of where I grew up. I'm sure anyone that heard my speech, got a feel for that. 4,000 people in my hometown. Every other town around's a lot smaller than that. So, growing up in an environment like that, I learned a lot about, the way people treat each other in a small environment, in a small, town. And I think that has a lot about who I am. But awesome with the work ethic, the, the dad that I saw, basically all day on Saturdays, most of the time on Sundays, after church, he would be back to work. And so, I think in this business, it was really easy for me to just be willing to do the extra work and go the extra mile and understanding, that that was going to pay off. So, um, played as many sports as I could because my dad made a deal with my brother and I that we kept ourselves busy. We wouldn't have to help him as much on the farm. So, I played everything that I could, possibly figure out, pick up. Basketball was definitely my main sport. Hence the jerseys, behind me and the basketball in the corner. Our building that we just moved into for our office space is a gym, so I'm pretty happy now. I can go down and shoot hoops when I want to. But yeah, that's kind of the background. I started here in Chicago. Um, got promoted on the Quill program from the field. Ran a Quill office for about a decade. Started to make some changes and figure out what different programs that maybe I wanted to move on to when we had to, and tried a lot. And I kind of found my footing and kind of just kept with AT&T residential over the last year. Went from 2 leaders to 25 in about 8 months. um, Promoted out in office, have two assistant managers, and focuses now on senior national.
Fantastic. And so what was your dad farming? Agriculture or livestock?
Yeah, agriculture, so mainly soybeans and corn, so more feed for the livestock than anything.
Got it. And so you went to college. Where'd you go to college exactly?
I went to Ohio State, so yeah,
Thumbs down, I see.
much better than
Okay.
Penn State, Michigan. But yeah, I went to Ohio State, studied architecture, totally different than our business. But opportunity to grow was the number one thing that I was looking for after school. So moved out of that route and found this business.
And so this has been your first gig coming out of college?
Yeah.
Huh. First and only job. Well, other than working with your dad, that's a full-time job.
Yeah. In college, I worked a couple different positions. I bartended, I waited tables to kind of pay the bills and things for school.
Right.
Yeah.
And so again, this reputation of like salt of the earth, I mean, that shouldn't come as a surprise. It was echoed obviously on stage. Everybody was kind of saying the same thing. Like just kind of grew up right. I mean, what would you say about that? Like what credit would you give your parents that gave you a competitive advantage coming into a business like this?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it was a competitive advantage. I think our business, in order to build and grow and develop people, you got to care about them. And I think, my parents just kind of taught me that. And my coaches, the sports that I played taught me that too. My high school football coach is in the Hall of Fame in the state of Ohio, and I think he still holds one of the records for the most wins. And so I watched a lot of that too, and understood a lot about being a captain and a leader on a team. And I think all of that carries over to this business. Um, and that competitive advantage, I think, as well, is my parents always included us in a lot of decision making in the family. And so heavy decisions never really felt as big for me, because of that. And I think on top of that, I think my parents always just believed in me, so I always just kind of knew that there was going to be you know myself in my corner and my parents in my corner. And if you got that type of people in your corner, you feel pretty good about any risk you take and decisions you make. And so, yeah, learned a lot.
I'm sure being a new dad, Gary must have given you the book Self-Esteem by Dorothy somebody,
Yeah, sure
right?
did.
I can't remember her last name. Dorothy, what's her last name? The author?
I don't remember either. I
Okay.
read it
Starts
as
with
soon as
an
I got it
E
though.
or something like that.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm assuming, I assume you read the book. Let me start with that. You
Yeah,
read the book.
yeah, as soon as I got it.
And I would have to believe, based on what you're saying, you read the book and you're like, well, my parents, like, this is exactly what they did.
Yeah,
So you were raised with a really good self-esteem, obviously not boastful or not like, don't develop this crazy pride. It's gonna, pride comes before the fall. But again, you felt comfortable in your own skin, I'm assuming, big time.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I don't know. I've had self-doubt. I think we all do, but I think, there's definitely a piece of like having the confidence that I know that I'm going to figure it out as long as I continue to get around the right mentors and do the right amount of work. Like it's only a matter of time. And so I
Yeah.
think that's definitely something I learned.
Yeah. And what was your lowest point then? Like what were you ever rattled where, again, self-doubt, I get that, but were you ever rattled where you said to yourself, I don't think I can do this?
Yeah, I mean, several times. I mean, it was probably my third or fourth week, and I kept watching, new hires get promoted after me, or excuse me, get promoted before me that started after me. And so, early on, I think I had a lot of those thoughts of like, maybe sales isn't for me. I'm an introvert. Is this something that I really even see myself doing? Just kind of painting all of the wrong pictures just because I was, kind of wanting to help myself out with the idea of quitting being okay. And I had a real conversation with myself. I was like, I'm going to go through life constantly telling myself that maybe I'm just not cut out for it, or maybe I'm not ready for this, or maybe this isn't, for me. And then I'm just going to quit again and quit again and quit again. And so I kind of made the decision like, no, maybe I should just see through this and try to figure this out and make this a skill that I don't have. And when I was able to do that, any other challenge that I've gone through, I kind of just started looking at it through that like same approach. Like, what is this doing for me? How is this going to help me in the long run? You know, when I promoted out and started coaching an outside deal, and maybe had my struggles there, or coaching and building an organization while trying to, set the pace in my own office. It was just like I constantly started looking at it as, what is this doing for me? How is this going to benefit me? Where's the new skill that I'm gaining? And it all started honestly that early on learning the sales.
Hmm, great. And so, I'm assuming when you're describing how you went from 2 liters to, did you say 28? You went from 2 to 28 in 8 months?
25, yeah.
2 to 25. And so that's when, I mean, you were raised kind of on a B2B program for a decade. Then COVID happens and we pivot from, hey, goodbye, Quill. It was great working with you. And here you are now taking on AT&T Res again with 2 liters right around the COVID time. So to make matters, worse, you can't even use your face to smile. I mean, I remember those days, selling reps on using the smizing thing, and I'm kind of like, man, I hope we never have to go through that again. Like,
Yeah,
gotta show the teeth, if you're gonna be
right.
an effective salesperson. Um, so how did you transition? How did you go through that comfort zone? Again, B2B to res, a lot of people can't make that transition. Working late into the evening, later atmosphere, 6 days a week, all that stuff. And we're talking about being in the Midwest too, where your guys are in the field and minus however cold it gets, -20 probably is the coldest it gets there,
Yeah.
maybe worse. So just walk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, I think something I've also always believed is like you just got to be willing to do what your business needs you to do. And I think Justin, even touched on that in his speech. And I've always just, kind of looked at it that way. What does my business need from me? Is it being in the field and, trying to get as many people to walk, talk, and act like me? Is it learning a new pitch and setting the pace, or learning a new program and trying to set the pace so that way I'm the white rabbit until the white rabbit, gets hired? And so I've always just tried to look at that lens and like, okay, what does my business need from me? Obviously, I'd much rather say to myself, my business needs me to be in the office and, just recruit or do, the back end stuff and, whatever. But it's not always the case. So I think that is really where the thought process started. And then, you know, I got married in 2022 and found out that we were expecting, right after our honeymoon. And so there was also like a little timer in my head of just like, there's no shot that I'm gonna be in a position where I can't like, when he's born, where I can't like figure things out and go see him and be around him and, moments that I didn't want to miss. And it did kind of work out where I still didn't have much of a team. And, but I think from that point, it was even easier to do the extra things. It was like I saw him, I kind of had this understanding what he was going to look like and I knew he was going to be there. But when you actually kind of like have that in front of you, it's like, I'll work every day, every night. I'll take a million no's. Like it doesn't matter. And so then there's like this gear that I think also happened. And, um, and so, yeah, I think from that point forward, it's just kind of like you just know what it takes and you just have to do what you have to do.
Yeah, I tell people if you're struggling, finding purpose and motivation, just have a kid. I mean,
Yeah.
I always considered myself pretty ambitious, and I was, and I became a senior national when my son was born, and so I didn't know how I would take that. Am I going to take my foot off the gas a little bit now that I'm a dad? I've been working so hard to get to this position in my life, and then as soon as Dane was born, like my ambition was on steroids. I felt like I just wanted to go to the office, pass out some cigars, I got a boy, here we go. And like, let's just get to work. So it sounds like you went through the same process.
Yeah. And I think, maybe something I didn't also add was just like, I've always felt like I've been a great student. Like I've always tried, and I mentioned this too, being a learn it all, not a know it all. But I took that to another level too. Like I don't care if you are, the soon to be consultant like Hageman who crushes the program. I was always calling him, or Rebby, who obviously, became a senior national, building an org on that program, or the new rookie owner that I've never heard of, but I've been told is killing it. They have a lot they can teach me, or even the top performing reps. I have a lot of them, luckily, in my org in Danny's office or Kevin Fuller's office. And so they're calling me for one-on-ones around, building their team and getting promoted. And I'm like secretly asking them questions about like selling wireless and, how do I bundle, the same stuff that they're doing. And so I think that you can learn as much as you can from anyone if you're, you know, have the right intent around it.
Yeah. And just to shift gears a little bit on your guys. I mean, you have, and I know you've heard this, but you have this amazing team. You brought up two of the names, Danny Giannone and Kevin Fuller. I mean, I had Kevin come to my office probably in 2018 or whatever it was, and he was a rep. And man, he was one of the most dynamic people I have ever seen. I fell in love with him from day one. And so him and I have this interesting bond. Every time I see him, I'm just like, you just have the epitome of like such a great, magnetic, energetic attitude. Like, I love this guy. And so, how do you catch such great, talented people? I mean, when I take a look at Kevin Fuller, every company he applied for must have wanted this guy. Like, you'd be a fool to pass on a guy like Kevin Fuller because he's pretty unique and he's extremely, again, magnetic is probably the best word I could use. So, how did you catch him? How did you catch Danny? How come these guys didn't go elsewhere? What makes you a great recruiter, in your opinion?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it starts with, if you catch the right one's going to help you catch more of the right ones, and that kind of just like snowballs too, because realistically, I interviewed Danny, who interviewed Joe, who's another promoting owner in our org, and Joe actually did Kevin's second round interview, and I think between the two of those guys, like Kevin saw, two guys that could potentially be not just good mentors, but best friends down the road. And so I think, yeah, being a great recruiter is, I think, such an important piece to it, because and that's not just in our business. I think that's anywhere, because great talent attracts great talent, and every company wants the best and the most talent. So, I've read books, and I'm drawing a blank on some of them, but Urban Meyer, I read a book that he had about recruiting. Like I'm a big sports guy, and so I pay attention to recruiting in college basketball, college football, and I try to think of it the same way. Like if they're going to attract that blue chip 5-star player, why does that player want to come play for that coach? And I just try to add a lot of those same values into our business, and so it kind of attracts that type of person. But also, you know, I don't believe that the recruiting ever stops. Like yeah, they come in day one, but the way you treat them, the way you hang out with them, the way you spend time with them, the example you set for them, all those things are just continuing to have the Kevin Fuller, that comes into the office. Like, and this isn't to take anything away from Kevin, but there are people all over the country that have his same type of energy and his same type of, love for life and the way he kind of brings that energy. But if you're not like, you know, facilitating that in the right way in your business, then they're leaving the business. So I think there's a part of that that's important too.
Hmm. It's funny you say that. I mean, it's such a big priority. We have to be great at recruiting. I mean, I tell this to leaders, tell this to owners, like this is a muscle you have got to work on. You can't be flabby in this department. And you could Google it. Magic Johnson was on a late night talk show, might have been Jimmy Kimmel. I can't remember who it was, but he was describing how he recruited LeBron James. So here's a guy who's already worth $600 million or whatever he was at the time. So again, you'd think, oh yeah, my recruiting days are behind me. I'm Magic. Like, what do I care? I'm rich. I'm wealthy. Whatever. But no, he's practice pitching like what's going to happen as he's parked on LeBron's driveway, trying to give him the pitch on why he should, come to LA and be a Laker. And I'm like, wow, like if Magic is practice pitching his recruiting pitch, how are our owners or our leaders like not, making this a big priority? Like you've got to really fine tune those skills. And I
Yeah.
agree. If you've got a team of people around you that, and a guy like Kevin Fuller comes in, like, well, I like that guy. I like that guy, like the owner, like that. I mean, it just becomes so much easier when you've got a plethora of people to help your cause, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And then, real quick to piggyback off that, a book that I read, From Good to Great, is talking about it's about just getting the right people on the bus, and then you just don't demotivate the right people. And, having standards and making sure that you have an environment and a culture that the awesome people love being a part of, versus lowering your standards and letting that, the wrong people hang around in your business for too long. That's just going to demotivate and unattract the right people. So you got to kind of always be, auditing that, I think, is important too.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got the Larry Bird jersey too. There's a great story too of his old coach who, because Bird went to Indiana, he was a Hoosier, and then he quit after a year. He's like, I don't want to, I'm done with college. And the Indiana State University coach came out to meet mom and dad and recruit Larry, and the rest is history. But yeah, recruiting is such an important part of every great business. I mean, you can't get around that. All right, so everybody can prepare to ask some questions. I'll just leave you with one more question. So, newly married, new dad, what's life like for Michael at this stage in your life?
Yeah. Well, we announced recently, but we do have number two on the way. So, yeah, another boy. So my poor wife, she, I was hoping she could have a girl, but the boys run strong in my Lefeld side apparently. So hopefully we'll get a girl eventually. But yep. So we got another one on the way, due in March. So she's kind of letting me do a little extra traveling. Andy, myself, Danny, and Kevin are actually flying to Scotland here in a couple weeks. We got 3 rounds of golf. Um, this weekend we actually have Danny's bachelor party, which is going to be fun and exciting. But I'm I was asked to officiate him and Jesse's wedding, so I have that coming up here in in November, which is pretty cool. It's an honor to obviously be able to officiate any wedding, but for Danny to ask me to do that, obviously meant a lot. Um, and as far as just life, I mean, we are happy and obviously earning a promotion to consultant, like it's a different level of revenue and income that I'm not one to usually go out and spend a lot. It's not really my style. But obviously when you're able to stash even more cash or get crafty with different investments and start thinking about your life and from a financial standpoint just at a different viewpoint, it just honestly it motivates me even more. People have asked me too, like, what's changed, since getting promoted consultant. And honestly, clicking on my name, when I'm registering for things is kind of cool, where the consultant name is already there. But other than that, like nothing's really changed. Like I feel like I'm more motivated than I ever have been because I want more people on my team to earn this promotion and know what that felt like and feels like and have that same type of financial situation. I feel a responsibility, not just to the organization, but to anyone in this business because, the same way I figured it out through mentors and a path that was kind of laid out, like I want to help people with that too. So I get a lot of fulfillment out of that too. So I do a ton of calls with, I know I have a call with Grant's assistant manager here in a couple, I think tomorrow or early next week. So like I just like doing that. I like helping, and that's kind of all I see, for the next year. And I do have a goal of hitting senior national in 2 years. We have 15 offices and 7 assistant managers. One of them is my assistant manager. So, we'll see where things lay by the end of the year and early part of next year. But I like to have aggressive targets, and I think that it's realistic. So that's kind of where my focus is.
Beautiful. All right, I'll open it up.
Have you changed your routine at all from like running the office to helping the outside offices as well?
You mean just like from the whole organization or each
Like,
department?
yeah, so like you have like a lot of people to manage on top of just running a high performing ICL. I'm just wondering if as you got closer to consulting, if your schedule started to shift, what shifted, what worked, what didn't work?
Yeah, I think having like I've done it a couple different ways where I just tried pre-scheduling one-on-ones with owners in my org and whatever reason that just never really worked. Whether it was like, hey, we had to reschedule or move things around. And, I think that might work for a lot of owners and a lot of consultants. I just never found that flow. And so, but what I did do instead, Grant, was I just, with my planner, I just put like reminders throughout the week to just make sure that I checked in. And, you check in on someone, ask how life's going, check in on, what's new with the business. And then all of a sudden it turns into another 30-minute conversation. And then what didn't feel like it was so forced. And I think that that's really helped because I do care about them as a person first. And then, the conversation usually goes to the business. And then I think something I'll never forget, Ed Cunliffe said at a promoting owners weekend that I've done for years, and I totally believe in it. This has maybe been more challenging, but he said if your owners in your organization have happy, growing, developing leaders, your owner is going to be a happy, growing, developing owner. And because they just have players that are already doing the right things and growing. And if I can help in that area, then I'm going to have happy owners. And so I've always done one-on-ones with the high performing leaders that are growing in my org's offices. That part's been more challenging because as we've grown, there's been less time and more people that kind of fall into those scenarios. But I guess I've tried to make that an even higher level of standard that, those are the people that I'm really talking to more, and because then they can help more people too.
Um, I have a question about the recruiting piece that we were just going over. Nice meeting you. One
too.
thing you said like it kind of starts snowballing, which I believe is very true once you start having that talent. in your business. What are some of the things that you focus on like these high potential guys that you have essentially in your office? Like, is it more like the one-on-ones? Is it outside of the office? What is it that's your strategy? Is it like showing them trips? Is it personal time? I know a lot of people are a little bit different, but what would you say some of your strategy is, or what is it that you're good at when it comes to, the recruiting side and keeping those guys going essentially?
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I think something I would like encourage you guys in the organization is almost to ask that question. Like, what was it for you that got you to really be exposed and understand the business and love it and stick and move forward? Because really all we're trying to do is find more of the same people on this screen, right?
Right.
And that just keeps building. So, and you're right, sometimes it's different for other people, but I kind of like ask that question inward, like, what was important to me? Early on, my manager took me on a trip with another owner, and we like went to like a dirt track race, and he knew that I was a small town dude and that I was gonna love that. And we drink some beer and have some fun, right? And so like that was something that obviously I liked. But being in an environment that talked about growth, talked about, the big picture, went and saw other offices that were growing and same idea, a big picture, getting exposure to more people that I could learn from or that I could see as like, an example. So I think those are the things that, the high performers love to be around, and again, like if everyone on this call thought to themselves, like, yeah, I could pinpoint moments like that were kind of the game changer for me. I'm just trying to create more of those moments for those people because then that's going to, probably work and exercise the same way it did for me.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Michael Lefeld. Well, we're pretty much at time. Have a great time in Scotland. What a fun trip that's going to be. Prepare to lose a bunch of balls.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, AT&T, they gave me 24 Pro V1s with like AT&T stamps, on them for getting promoted to consultant. So I told them they'll probably have a bunch of AT&T, Pro V1s scattered all over Scotland for forever because I'm sure I'm going to lose a lot of them.
Oh, that'll be funny. But yeah, we appreciate your example. Again, you're one of those good guys, and it's nice to see good guys winning, Michael. So keep being who you are. And obviously we're going to keep rooting for your success. And obviously Danny's right around the corner. He should be promoted at potentially Keys or something like that. So anything we can do for your org, I mean, we're at your service. We love you and your guys. So keep up all the great work, my friend.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Jamie. Same back to you guys. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.
See you guys.